treatment, with the wry humor, the comments on social attitudes, the attitude towards power, the way in which the common people's mind understands the subtleties and the power play. All those things which are woven through this story were very, very evident in the way it was enacted and presented. And the tongue-in-cheek humor that was there throughout was also very evident. So I think that this was a wonderful way to sort of launch into a discussion about the story. And I'm not sure how many of you are unfamiliar with this very young-looking lad sitting next to me, Vishes Kothari. He is the person who, this is the second volume of stories that he has published, which are taken from Detha's collection. Passionate about translating from Rajasthani, Marwari language into English, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Let me see, where is your brief bio note? Is it in the beginning? It's at the end. Yeah, so I was going to just, it looks weird to start without actually briefly introducing the writer. But the thing that I found very fascinating about Vishesh is the fact that one half of him is a mathematician. And he's actually a financial consultant, and he studied mathematics to quite a level, which I always find fascinating, having steadfastly failed in mathematics throughout my school years. So it's always wonderful to meet somebody who's specialized in that. So here you have somebody who leads life as a mathematics person and a financial consultant, but who's also given himself over to this mission of delving into the oral, musical, and literary traditions of Rajasthan. His first book of translations of Detha's stories was called Timeless Tales from Marwar, and it was published in 2020. And now he has a second book, a selection, which he has done himself and culled out of the very vast oeuvre of translations that Detha has done. And he has also led the creation of the digital archive of Rajasthani literature and oral traditions called Anjas, right? And he is a founding trustee of the Rajasthan Bhasha Academy. So as you can see, apart from the actual work of translation, he has also undertaken quite a sort of sustained study into the oral traditions of Rajasthan. So, Vishesh, would you like to just start by telling us why you felt this was such an important task?
So, I think ek gadbad to ho gayi. After that energy level, the discussion will be slightly, yeah, please, it might be lower in energy, so please do bear with us. Next time, maybe we should keep the performance at the end so people stay on for the full thing. So, we'll bear that in mind, Ramanjit ji, next time we have you over. Right, so about the book, I'll try to speak in both languages because yahan par I think there's a multilingual audience. So, pehli wali kitab, I will be a little bit hypocritical if I say it was thought of as a mission. ऐसा इतनी बड़ी कोई योजना शुरू से थी नहीं. Just that right now, people who are aware, translations, Indian regional language literature, it's an idea whose time has come. The market is demanding that. Gitanjali Shri ki kitab ne is saal Booker Prize jeeti. Since Ghachar Gochar came along, Vivek Shanbhag ki jo Kannada kitab thi, which got translated into English, and it became a runaway bestseller, there's been a huge demand from publishers कि भारतीय प्रांतीय भाषाओं से साहित्य जो है उसको इंग्लिश में उपलब्ध करवाया जाए. And I happened to be at Ashoka University, where there were people I was teaching there, and there were people who were other writers. So I was in the right place at the right time because Penguin was really looking to commission a set of children's stories एंड राजस्थानी से और कोई ट्रांसलेशन खास कर नहीं रहा था. राजस्थानी से ट्रांसलेशन करने में ऐसा है कि वी हैव ऑलवेज स्पोकन द लैंग्वेज एंड माई ग्रैंड फादर वॉज ऑलवेज वेरी इंसिस्टेंट कि नहीं अपने लोगों से अपनी भाषा में बात करो. सो वी लर्न द लैंग्वेज एट होम एंड वी स्पीक इट विथ मदर टंग फ्लुएंसी. So there was never a formal learning curve that I had to go through. I just proceeded with it as I would intuitively. And Penguin ने तुरंत ही किताब को commission कर दिया. And then this was the next stories. Vijayan ji को choose करने का reason is pretty obvious. You know, he is the most important prose writer from Rajasthan in the 20th century. उनकी इतनी कहानियाँ हैं which were made into films. I think particularly in a place like Calcutta, जो मज़ा आता है इस किताब के बारे में बात कर कर कि every time I've spoken, you know, Mayura has had me over at Storyteller or we did an event at Oxford. एक दो बार schools में भी जाने का मौका मिला. So people get a little bit astounded because Calcutta is really, you know, has been the hub of migration from Rajasthan. Not from today, but you know, when the Battle of Plassey happened, we were already well settled in Bengal. So that's 1757. So 200 years at least of migration history, if not earlier. And the Marwadi community here in Calcutta has, we're all brought up with some kind of a lack of sense of cultural self. You know, we are brought up to feel that आपका कोई culture नहीं है या ये trader community है, ये खाली व्यापार करते हैं या दाल चावल बिक्री करते हैं. You know, that's the way people talk about Marwadis disparagingly. And जब मैं एक दो कहानियाँ बोलता हूँ, people are slightly, I can see they are blank. But then in the first book particularly, मैं कहता हूँ कि उसमें तो सोनल बाई की कहानी है या उसमें झींटिए की कहानी है, किसका झींटिया किसका तम चल मेरी ढम की ढमाक ढम. And people always get very surprised कि अरे ये इस कहानी तो मेरे घर में मेरी दादी माँ कहा करती थी या मेरी परदादी कहती थी, but अब तो वो नहीं है अब हमारे घर में. And there's a sense of loss where they feel that they've lost connection with a part of their past and with a part of their oral history. And it's very refreshing in a city like Calcutta particularly to do this because it can enable people to reflect on, you know, what is literature. घर में एक कोने में एक बूढ़ी औरत बैठी है, वो कुछ न कुछ कहानी सुनाते रहती है, कभी कथाएं हैं, कभी पाठ है. We never think of that as legitimate literature. It has to come from, you know, either the white man or the brown sahib in India mostly. And to think that someone was compiling व्रत कथाओं को इकट्ठा करके और बच्चों की कहानी को इकट्ठा करके, he came into reckoning for the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2011, that this is also legitimate literature, that these old people and women and people who work for us. So that was very interesting and very enjoyable particularly to talk about it to an audience in Calcutta.
Right. You were also mentioning, I mean, the point that, that you brought up very aptly is that there is a very strong connection between one's identity, one's understanding of where we come from, which is tied up with this culture, the culture of stories, the culture of language, right? So when you were talking about the fact that Rajasthani is not got a script of its own, and therefore it very easily gets subsumed into Hindi, and that there is a need to understand that it has its own history and its own body of stories. So do you want to, is that part of why you are also persisting with this?
Yes, absolutely. So, without any doubt, right? I mean, linguists, scholars, people who do the census, for example, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that Rajasthani is a separate language.